Some stories were never meant to be heard. But you pressed play. Welcome to Mr. Creepy Official. If you're brave enough to survive this story, prove it, like, share, and subscribe before the darkness finds you.
The reflection that moves on its own. I never believed in the stories people whispered about mirrors. To me, they were just glass and silver. Ordinary. Safe. But the first time I noticed something wrong, it was so small I almost convinced myself it didn't happen. I was standing in the bathroom, brushing my teeth. It was late, well past midnight, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge downstairs. My reflection stared back at me, mouth full of foam, movements perfectly matched, until I spat into the sink. That's when it happened. My reflection didn't move. I leaned closer, thinking maybe I'd imagined it. A trick of tired eyes. But no, he was still there, standing perfectly still, foam dripping from his mouth, staring at me. My heart skipped a beat. I lifted my hand slowly, cautiously. My reflection followed, late. A full second late. Like he had to remember what I was doing before he copied it. I froze. So did he. We stared at each other, both motionless, but I swear to God his eyes flicked sideways, scanning me like he wasn't just reflecting, like he was studying. I laughed nervously, forced myself to break away, rinsed the sink, and turned off the bathroom light. My bedroom door was only a few steps away, but every step felt heavier, like something was following just behind me. The next morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. Maybe I'd been so tired I imagined it. Sleep deprivation can mess with your brain, right? But that wasn't the last time. The next night, I noticed it again. This time in my bedroom mirror. I'd been scrolling my phone, half asleep, when I caught a glimpse of movement. The mirror across the room reflected me sitting on my bed, but when I lifted my head, the reflection didn't. It just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the screen. I dropped my phone instantly. The reflection's head twitched, snapping up toward me with a sickening jerk, like a puppet being yanked upright. And the smile it gave me wasn't mine. That smile was too wide. Too sharp. I stumbled backward, heart hammering in my chest. My throat went dry, but I forced myself to whisper. "Hello?" The reflection didn't answer. Just kept smiling. That was the last night I slept in my room with the lights off. The days after that blurred together. Every reflective surface became a trap. My phone screen, the dark window in the kitchen at night, even the shiny metal of the toaster. Every time, I swore I saw it. Sometimes it was subtle, a lag in my movements, an odd tilt of the head. Sometimes it was blatant, like the time my reflection waved after I'd already put my hand down. I started covering mirrors. I turned my bathroom mirror to face the wall. Draped towels over the hallway one. Even shoved my bedroom mirror into the closet. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape. Because reflections aren't just in mirrors. They're everywhere. One night, as I lay in bed with the curtains shut tight, I caught the faint glow of my phone screen against the black TV. Just a vague silhouette of myself. But then it moved. Before I did. That was the night I realized. It wasn't me in there anymore. It was something else. And it was getting closer that I stopped using mirrors altogether. Or at least, I tried to. The problem is, once you start avoiding reflections, you realize just how many are around you. The windows at night. The glossy surface of your phone. Even the water in the sink after you wash your hands. Every single one becomes a threat. For a while, I thought I was going crazy. I didn't tell anyone. How could I? Imagine trying to explain, my reflection moves on its own. People would laugh, or worse, they'd lock me up somewhere padded. So I kept it to myself. But the thing about secrets is, they rot inside you. And mine was festering. It was a Tuesday night when I saw him, really saw him, for the first time. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still on, some mindless. Late night infomercial droning in the background. The screen went black after the timer kicked in, leaving me in the dark, the faint hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. Then I saw it. Not me. Him. In the reflection of the TV screen, a figure leaned forward from the couch. Same clothes as me. Same hair. Same tired eyes, except his weren't tired. They were wide, hungry, and locked directly on me. I froze. My chest tightened as though I'd been punched. Slowly, I turned my head toward the couch. It was empty. I snapped my gaze back to the screen. There he was. Smiling again. Wide, unnatural, stretching too far across his face like someone had carved it there. And then, he raised his hand and pressed it against the inside of the TV screen. I stumbled back, knocking over a glass on the coffee table. It shattered across the floor. My reflection, no, the thing in the glass, tilted its head, studying me. Then it did something that froze me to the bone. It mouthed words. But the screen was dark, silent. I couldn't hear them. Still, I knew what it was saying. Let me out. I bolted from the room, heart slamming against my ribs, breath tearing in my throat. I didn't stop until I reached my bedroom and slammed the door shut. I shoved a chair against the handle, even though I knew, deep down, that wouldn't help. Because whatever it was, it didn't need doors. It had every reflection in the house. That night, I dreamt of mirrors. Endless mirrors. Stretching into infinity like a maze I couldn't escape. Everywhere I turned, my reflection followed me, but it wasn't me. They were all smiling. Waiting. Reaching out from the other side of the glass. When I woke, the chair was tipped over. The door wide open. And on the wall, in the faint outline of breath, were 5 words written across the mirror I thought I'd hidden in my closet. I'm getting closer now. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't even leave my bed. My phone buzzed with messages. I ignored, my stomach growled, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with the thought that if I stepped into the hallway, if I looked at the wrong surface for even a second, I'd see him again. But the thing about hiding is, it only makes them hunt harder. That night, I heard a sound that made my skin crawl. A soft tapping. Like fingernails against glass. At first, I thought it was the window. The wind, maybe. But then I realized, it was coming from the bathroom. Tap. 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 I lay in bed, frozen. My eyes fixed on the dark crack under the bathroom door. The sound grew louder. More insistent. Tap 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 tap. And then, silence. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe I'd imagined it. Until I heard the voice. Low. Whispering. Coming from the bathroom mirror. I see you. I don't remember falling asleep after that. I think I just blacked out, my body shutting down from sheer terror. When I woke the next morning, the bathroom mirror was on the floor. Shattered. Pieces of glass scattered across the tiles. And in every shard, the reflection was still smiling at me. All of them. Dozens of me. Dozens of him. All whispering the same thing in silence. Soon, the shards stayed where they fell. I didn't dare touch them. Didn't dare sweep them up, didn't even dare step foot in that bathroom again. Because every time I passed by, I felt it, dozens of tiny eyes staring at me from the floor. Each shard was a window. Each shard held him inside. And every single one was waiting. I stopped using the bathroom entirely. I brushed my teeth in the kitchen sink, showered at the gym, did everything I could to avoid stepping into that tiled room of whispers. But even from the hallway, I swore I could hear faint laughter coming from behind the door. Not mine. His. It didn't stop there. The reflection spread. In the windows at night, I could see him standing behind me, even when I was alone. His face pale, his smile crooked, his eyes dark and heavy like something dead was watching through them. In my phone's black screen, I'd catch him twitching, tilting his head the wrong way, blinking too slowly. And in water, the worst of all, I'd see him crawling toward me. One night, I ran the kitchen faucet, too afraid to look down, but I couldn't help it. I glanced at the stainless steel sink filled with rippling water. There he was. Not standing. Crawling. Hands pressed against the inside of the reflection, dragging his body closer with each jagged pull. His nails scraped the surface of the water, and I swear I felt vibrations travel up through the metal sink. I shut the faucet instantly, heart pounding. But the ripples didn't fade right away. Something was still moving in there. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself again that it wasn't real. I told myself I was sick, I needed sleep, I needed a break. So I left the house for the first time in days, just to get away. I walked to a diner downtown, one of those greasy places with old booths and cracked vinyl menus. The normal noise of people talking, forks scraping plates, the hiss of the fryer, it almost calmed me. For a little while. Until I saw the mirror behind the counter. It was huge. Old. The kind meant to make a cramped place look bigger. But it didn't make the diner look bigger. It showed something else entirely. The booths and the mirror weren't the same as the ones behind me. The people weren't the same. They sat frozen, every head turned toward me, their faces pale, their eyes black pits. And behind the counter, where the cook should have been, stood him. My reflection. But not smiling this time. Staring. And he raised his hand, slowly, pressing his palm flat against the glass like he had at my TV. Except this time, there was blood on his hand. I bolted out of the diner, ignoring the confused shouts from the waitress. I didn't care. I couldn't breathe. My chest was a vice, my vision tunneling, the world spinning around me. I ran all the way home. When I reached my front door, I nearly collapsed, fumbling with my keys like a drunk. But when I finally shoved the door open, I froze. Because the hallway mirror I'd covered with a towel. The towel was on the floor. The mirror was bare. And written across it, in long, streaking letters, was one single word. Tonight. That was when I realized. He wasn't just watching anymore. He was counting down. That night, I locked every door. Every window. I unplugged my TV, shoved my phone into a drawer, covered every reflective surface I could find with blankets and towels. But when darkness fell, I heard it again. The tapping. Soft. Slow. Coming from everywhere at once. Tap, tap, tap. Windows. The microwave door. The oven. Even the faint sheen of the hardwood floor seemed to echo with it. And then came the voice. Not a whisper this time. A rasp. A hiss. Open the door. I clamped my hands over my ears. But the sound wasn't in my ears. It was in my head. Crawling through me like something alive. Open the door, it's time to let me in. I screamed. And every reflective surface in the house screamed back. The sound didn't stop. It crawled through the walls, through the air, through me. I staggered into my bedroom, slammed the door shut, pressed my back against it like that could somehow keep him out. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I tried to convince myself, it's not real, you're losing your mind. But then I saw it. In the corner of the room. The mirror I'd shoved into the closet. The closet door was cracked open. And from the black space inside, two pale hands pressed against the glass. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stood there, my chest heaving, my eyes burning, while those hands dragged downward, leaving streaks of condensation. Then a face pushed forward. My face. But wrong. The skin was too tight. The smile too wide. The eyes too empty. He pressed against the inside of the glass so hard the mirror began to creak, like it was straining to hold him back. I stumbled toward the door, but then I realized something that froze me in place. My reflection in the mirror, he wasn't copying me anymore. I turned. He didn't. I lifted my hand. He stayed still. And then, slowly, deliberately, he lifted his hand, and dragged his finger across his throat. I ran. Out of the bedroom, down the hall, down the stairs, out the front door. My bare feet slapped the pavement as I bolted into the night, not even caring where I was going. I just needed to get away. But the thing about reflections is, you can't outrun them. Every car window I passed, every darkened store glass, every puddle on the street, they all showed him. Not me. Him. Following me. Grinning. And in each one, he was closer. I didn't stop until I reached the old church at the end of town. The doors were locked, but I pounded on them until my fists hurt. Finally, a light flicked on inside, and an old priest cracked the door open, his eyes bleary with sleep. "Please," I gasped. "Please, you have to help me." He let me inside, locking the door behind me. I collapsed on one of the pews, shaking, trying to explain, the words tumbling out of me in a mess. My reflection, it's not me, it's not. The priest held up a hand. "You're not the first," he said quietly. My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He looked at me with eyes that seemed far too tired, too heavy, for one man to carry. "There are stories," he said. "Old stories. About the other side of mirrors. About things that wait there. Things that watch. Sometimes, they find someone weak enough, broken enough, to push against the glass." I shook my head violently. "No. No, this isn't some story, this is happening. He's here. He's trying to get out." The priest sighed. "I know." And then he led me down a narrow set of stairs into The church basement. The basement smelled of damp stone and candle wax. The walls were lined with sheets, covering what I first thought were paintings. But then I realized. They weren't paintings. They were mirrors. Dozens of them. Some cracked, some shattered, some covered entirely in heavy cloth. "This is where we keep them," the priest said softly. "The broken ones. The dangerous ones. People bring them here when they can't live with them anymore." I stared at him in horror. "You mean there are others?" He nodded. "More than you'd think." I stepped closer to one of the covered mirrors, heart thundering. My hands shook as I reached out, pulled the cloth back just a little. And I saw her. A woman. Pale, thin, her eyes black and sunken. She pressed her hands against the inside of the glass, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I stumbled back, dropping the cloth. The priest's voice was grim. "They don't stop once they've chosen you. You can cover the glass, you can break it, you can run, but they'll always find a way. Always." I shook my head. "Then what do I do?" "There has to be a way, there has to be a way to stop it." The priest looked at me, his expression hollow. "There is only one way." My throat tightened. "What way?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "You have to go through." The words hung in the air like poison. "You have to go through." I stared at the priest, my mouth dry, my chest rising and falling too fast. "What the hell are you talking about?" He didn't flinch. His voice was calm, like he'd said these words before. "The only way to end it is to face what waits on the other side. If you don't, it will keep following you. It will tear its way out. And when it does, it won't just take your life. It will take everything." I shook my head violently. "No. No, I'm not going in there. That's insane." The priest looked at me with something like pity. "Then you won't last much longer." I left the church that night, but the words stuck with me. "You have to go through." I tried to ignore them. I tried to tell myself he was crazy, some old man spouting superstitions. But deep down, I knew he was right. Because the very next night, I woke up to the sound of glass cracking. I bolted upright in bed, my eyes darting around the dark room. The closet door was rattling. Crack. Crack. Creak. The mirror inside was breaking. Splitting. Something was pushing through. And then I heard it. A voice. My voice. "Open up, let me in." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in the corner of my room until the sun came up, staring at the closet door, waiting for it to burst open. When the first light of dawn spilled through the blinds, the cracking stopped. But I knew it was only a matter of time. By the next night, I was ready. I dragged the mirror out of the closet, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped it. I set it against the wall. Sat in front of it. Stared at him. At me. But not me. He grinned, his head tilting in that twitchy, broken way. His eyes darted across my face, studying me, like he was memorizing every flaw. Then, slowly, he raised his hand and pressed it against the glass. I should have run. I should have smashed the mirror. But instead, I raised my hand too. And when our palms touched, the glass rippled like water. I gasped, stumbling backward. My reflection's grin widened, his teeth sharp, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The surface of the mirror rippled again, and I felt it, cold, wet fingers closing around mine. He was pulling me in. Or maybe I was letting him. The priest's words echoed in my head. You have to go through. So I didn't fight it. I stepped forward. And the glass swallowed me whole. The air on the other side was thick. Heavy. It tasted like iron and ash. I opened my eyes and nearly screamed. Because I was standing in my bedroom, but it wasn't my bedroom. The walls were darker, stained, with something that looked like mold. The furniture was broken, splintered. And the mirror behind me showed nothing. No reflection. Not anymore. I turned slowly. And that's when I saw them. The others. Dozens of pale figures, standing in the shadows, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles. Some were versions of me, older, younger, thinner, fatter. Some weren't me at all. Men. Women. Children. All of them staring. All of them waiting. And somewhere in the dark, I heard the sound of nails scratching against glass. Closer. Closer, the scratching grew louder. It echoed through the dark, bouncing off the walls of this broken version of my room. I turned in circles, my breath ragged, my eyes wide, trying to find where it was coming from. Then I realized, it wasn't just one sound. It was dozens. Every figure in the shadows, their nails were dragging across invisible glass. Some pressed their hands flat against the air, like they were behind walls I couldn't see. Others clawed at nothing, their fingers leaving trails of sparks in the dark. And then, as one, they all turned their heads toward me. I stumbled back, my spine slamming into the cold, damp wall. My knees buckled. What do you want from me? I shouted. The figures only smiled. And then, one by one, they began to speak. Not out loud. Inside my head. A chorus of whispers that made my skull feel like it was splitting apart. Trade. Switch. Give. Replace. I pressed my hands to my ears, screaming, but the voices only grew louder, filling me with their hunger. And then, out of the mass of twisted faces, one stepped forward. Him. My reflection. But this time, his smile was gone. His face was calm. His eyes steady. Like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. He lifted his hand and pointed at me. You're not supposed to be here. The words weren't a whisper. They were clear. Sharp. Real. I froze. My chest rose and fell too fast, my heart hammering. What do you mean? He tilted his head. You opened the door. You stepped through. Now you belong here. I shook my head violently. No. No, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. But the figures behind him began to close in, their smiles stretching, their eyes glinting in the darkness. You do now, he said. And then he turned, and walked toward the mirror. Toward my world. I ran. I don't even know where I was running to. The room twisted, stretched, bled into a hallway lined with glass on both sides. Mirrors stacked on mirrors, endless reflections staring back at me. But none of them were mine anymore. Each reflection was different. Some showed me screaming. Some showed me dead. Some showed things I couldn't even recognize, my face torn apart, my body hanging from the ceiling, my eyes gouged out. And in every single one, he was there too. Smiling. Closer. Closer. I reached the end of the hallway and slammed into a mirror, my palms slapping against the cold surface. It rippled under my touch, just like before, but this time I couldn't push through. On the other side, I saw my bedroom. Empty. Then he walked in. My reflection. No longer copying me. No longer a shadow. He moved with purpose, his shoulders straighter, his steps heavier. He sat down on my bed. Ran his fingers across my desk. Picked up my phone. And then, he looked up. Right at me. His smile returned. And I realized the truth. I hadn't been running from him. I'd been replaced. I pounded on the mirror, my fists raw, my throat hoarse from screaming. Get out of there. That's not yours. That's not you, that's me. But he only laughed. And then he whispered words I'll never forget. They'll never know the difference. Behind me, the whispers rose again, dozens of voices chanting in unison. Stay, stay, stay. Hands reached out from the shadows, cold fingers brushing my arms, my neck, my back, pulling me away from the mirror. I fought, kicked, screamed, but it didn't matter. They dragged me deeper into the darkness. And the last thing I saw before the mirror faded from view was me, sitting in my room, smiling at the life that wasn't mine anymore. The cold hands pulled me backward until my heels scraped against the ground. I thrashed and screamed, but the shadows didn't loosen. The chanting grew louder, pounding against my skull. Stay, stay, stay. Then, silence. The hands let go. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping, my palms pressed against the damp stone. When I looked up, I wasn't in the hallway anymore. I was in a room. And it was full of mirrors. But not like before, these mirrors weren't clean. They were cracked, dirty, stained with black streaks. Some were shattered almost completely, the shards stuck together like broken teeth. And in every single one, there was someone inside. Dozens of faces pressed against the glass, their eyes wide, their lips moving soundlessly. Some clawed at the surface, their fingernails bloody. Others just watched, hollow and lifeless. When I stumbled forward, one of them slammed his palms against the mirror. His face was pale, gaunt, his eyes bloodshot. He mouthed the word, "Help." I staggered back, my stomach twisting. They weren't reflections. They were people. Trapped. What is this? I whispered, my voice shaking. The shadows didn't answer. But then, from the farthest mirror, one of the faces spoke. Not in my head. Out loud. You shouldn't have come here. My blood froze. The man inside the cracked glass leaned closer, his voice hoarse, broken, as though it hadn't been used in years. He's taken your place, hasn't he? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My throat burned. The man nodded slowly, his lips curling into a sad, broken smile. That's how it always happens. You looked too long. You opened the door. Now you're one of us. I stumbled toward the mirror. No, there has to be a way out. Tell me how to get back. The man's face darkened. His eyes flicked. To the shadows behind me. Once they've claimed you, there's no going back. I spun, heart in my throat. The figures were there again, crowding the edges of the room. smiling, silent. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. And then I realized something. They weren't shadows. They were reflections. Dozens of me. Each twisted in some way, some with their mouths stitched shut, some with empty sockets where their eyes should have been, some with smiles stretched so wide they split their cheeks. All of them watching. All of them waiting. No, I whispered, stumbling back toward the center of the room. My chest heaved, my hands trembling so violently I could barely keep them up. But the mirrors around me began to ripple. And one by one, the trapped people started to scream. Their voices tore through the silence, desperate, raw, animalistic. Hands beat against the glass until blood smeared across the surface. Their mouths gaped open, but I couldn't make out the words anymore. It was chaos. A prison made of glass and despair. And above it all, faint but clear, I heard his voice. My reflection. Whispering from the world I used to belong to. How does it feel? I spun toward the nearest mirror, my voice cracking. Let me out. Let me out. But the man in the cracked glass just shook his head. His lips formed one final word. Forever. The room went dark. And then the mirrors began to shatter. One by one. And something started to crawl through. The first mirror cracked with a sound like bones snapping. Glass rained onto the floor, shards scattering across the damp stone. I shielded my face, but when I looked up, something was already moving in the broken frame. A hand. Pale. Thin. Fingers too long. Nails black and jagged. It gripped the edge of the glass and pulled. I stumbled backward as a figure dragged itself through, its body contorting unnaturally to squeeze past the jagged opening. Its limbs bent at wrong angles, its neck twisted so far I thought it would snap. And when its face finally emerged, I felt my stomach turn to ice. It was me. But not like the reflections before. This one's skin was peeling, its teeth yellow and sharp, its eyes sunken deep into sockets that seemed to pulse with something dark. It crawled onto the floor and looked at me, its jaw unhinging with a wet crack. Then it laughed. The sound ripped through me, low at first, then rising, growing distorted, as if 10 voices were all overlapping at once. More mirrors shattered. More things began to crawl through. Some looked like me. Some didn't. One dragged itself on all fours, its back split open, ribs jutting outward like broken wings. Another slithered on the ground with no legs at all, its hands pulling it forward, its face a smooth, featureless blur. The air filled with their voices, moans, screams, whispers, laughter, all twisting together into a chorus that made me want to tear my own ears off. I turned and ran. My feet slipped on the shards, cutting through my skin, but I didn't stop. I bolted toward the farthest wall, searching for anything that wasn't a mirror. But the room stretched endlessly, mirrors lining every inch, breaking one after another, spilling horrors onto the floor. And they were all coming toward me. I tripped. My hand slammed against the cold stone, blood streaking from the cuts in my palms. I tried to push myself up, but a hand grabbed my ankle. Cold. Slimy. Strong. I kicked, screaming, but another hand joined it. Then another. I looked down. From the floor itself, pale arms were reaching out, dragging me down into the dark. No. No, 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 no. I clawed at the ground, my fingernails tearing as I tried to hold on, but the stone beneath me rippled like water. My arms sank in up to the elbows. my chest followed. And then I saw him. Through the nearest mirror. My reflection. Sitting on my bed. Laughing. Stop. I screamed, choking on my own sobs. Please, stop. That's mine, that's my life, please. But he only tilted his head, his smile soft, almost gentle. Not anymore. And then the hands yanked me all the way down. Darkness swallowed me. I fell through nothing, tumbling endlessly, my screams swallowed by the void. For a moment I thought I'd die like this, falling forever. But then, suddenly, I stopped. I was standing on glass. An endless plane of black, reflecting me from every angle. Except none of them were moving with me anymore. Every reflection stared back at me with lifeless eyes. And then, one of them blinked. The blink came again. I froze. My chest tightened, lungs burning as though the air itself was too thin. One reflection, just one, was alive. It tilted its head slowly, the sound of creaking bones echoing across the endless black. Then another one blinked. And another. Dozens. Hundreds. Until every reflection surrounding me was alive, staring, breathing, moving on its own. And none of them matched me anymore. One tilted its head too far, its neck snapping with a sharp crack before it dangled loosely. Another pulled its lips into a grin so wide the skin split, black liquid dripping down its chin. A third pressed its palms against the invisible glass and dragged them downward, smearing red trails as though it had been waiting for this moment. I spun, searching for a way out, but there was only endless reflection. And then the glass under my feet rippled. A sound followed. Knocking. Knock. 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 I dropped to my knees, pressing my hands against the surface. Something was beneath the glass. And it was knocking to be let out. The reflections around me leaned closer all at once, pressing their faces against the unseen barrier. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering words I couldn't understand. The knocking grew louder. Faster. Desperate. Knock 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 knock. I stumbled backward, my breath ragged, my legs barely holding me. Stop it. Just stop. But the reflections didn't stop. They started laughing. Not in sync. All different. High-pitched giggles, guttural growls, distorted echoes. The sound filled the endless glass plane, bouncing back until it was unbearable. And then, silence. The knocking stopped. I thought for a moment it was over. But then the glass directly beneath me shattered. I fell. Screaming. Through shards of my own face, my own body, my own eyes. Each fragment reflected me in a different way, me dying, me screaming, me hollow-eyed and grinning. The shards cut me as I fell, slicing into my skin, blood spraying across the black void. And then, I hit the ground. Hard. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a pool of glass and blood. My body shook violently, but I forced myself to look up. I wasn't on the glass plane anymore. I was in a corridor. The walls lined with mirrors. Each one covered in cloth. Except for one. The uncovered mirror at the far end of the corridor. And in it, he was waiting. My reflection. Smiling. He raised a finger to his lips. And then the covered mirrors all around me began to move. Something inside them was struggling. Pushing. trying to break free. The cloths bulged outward. Something beneath them writhed, twisting violently, pressing so hard against the fabric that the thread strained and split. I stumbled backward, my breath tearing out of me in short gasps. Then, rip! One of the cloths split straight down the middle. A hand shot out. Pale. Bloody. Nails cracked and jagged. It clawed at the air, then yanked itself forward, dragging the rest of its body into view. It was a man. Or it had been once. His skin was gray, sagging like wet paper. His mouth hung open in a silent scream, and where his eyes should have been, only pits of darkness stared back. I staggered away, but the other cloths began tearing one by one. More hands. More faces. Some human. Some not. One had a jaw unhinged so far it nearly split in two, a scream caught in its throat like a broken record. Another had no face at all, just a smooth surface where features should be, yet its head twitched violently, as though it could see me anyway. And all of them were crawling out. I turned to run, but my reflection at the end of the corridor only smiled wider. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. I slammed against the nearest wall, my shoulder nearly dislocating. The corridor had no doors, no escape. Just mirrors. The creatures dragged themselves forward, their movements jerky, insect-like. Their nails scraped against the stone floor, filling the air with a sound like knives against metal. One of them reached me first. Its hand gripped my ankle. Cold. Slimy. Inhumanly strong. I screamed, kicking, but the thing's grip only tightened, pulling me down. My back hit the floor. My skull cracked against the stone. Stars exploded across my vision. The others closed in. Dozens of them. Their mouths opening. But none of them screamed. Instead, they all whispered. Not in one voice. In many. Take him, take him, take him. The corridor shook with their whispers, the words vibrating in my chest, rattling my bones. And at the far end, my reflection raised his hand. Like he was conducting them. Stop. I cried, tears blurring my vision. Please, I'll do anything, just let me go. He tilted his head. And for the first time, he spoke directly. You already agreed. The words hit me like ice. I shook my head violently. No, I didn't, I never. But then the memory hit me. That first night. When I leaned into the bathroom mirror. When I whispered, hello. I had spoken first. And he had answered. The creatures swarmed me, their cold hands gripping every part of me, dragging me toward the uncovered mirror at the end of the corridor. I clawed at the floor, my nails ripping, blood streaking the stone. The closer we got, the more the surface rippled. Like water. Like it was waiting. No. I screamed. That's not me. I'm real. I'm real. But my reflection only laughed. And the last thing I felt before being pulled into the glass was his hand pressing against mine. On the other side. When my body hit the glass, it didn't feel solid. It felt alive. The surface gave way like flesh, cold and wet, sucking me in. My lungs collapsed as the air was forced from them. My screams drowned in the black liquid swallowing me whole. I kicked, I clawed, but there was nothing to grab. Just endless dark pulling me down. Then, suddenly, it was over. I hit the ground hard, my ribs aching, my head spinning. I lay there for a moment, trying to breathe, trying to convince myself I was still alive. But when I opened my eyes, I wished I hadn't. I wasn't in the corridor anymore. I was in a vast, endless field of mirrors. They stretched in every direction, some tall as buildings, some small as picture frames. Some were shattered, some flawless. And inside every single one, something was moving. Some mirrors held people, faces pale, eyes wide, pounding desperately at the glass. Others held things that used to be people. Their bodies twisted, warped, screaming silently. And some mirrors showed nothing at all. Just black emptiness. I staggered to my feet, my chest rising and falling too fast, panic tearing at my throat. Behind me, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I turned. And there he was. My reflection. Only now, he wasn't smiling. He looked calm. Serene. Like he owned this place. Where am I? I whispered, my voice shaking. He tilted his head slightly, studying me like a specimen. Home. The word sank into me like poison. No, I said, backing away. No, I'm not staying here. I don't belong here. He took one step closer. The mirrors around us rippled with his movement, like he wasn't just in front of me, he was in all of them. You looked too long. You asked. You invited me. That's the only rule. I stumbled until my back hit one of the mirrors. The cold surface vibrated beneath me. And when I turned my head, I saw myself. But it wasn't me now. It was me, weeks from now. My skin gray. My eyes empty. My lips cracked and bleeding. And my hands, clawing endlessly at the glass. No, I whispered, shaking my head violently. That's not real. That's not me. The reflection beside me leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. It will be. The mirror behind me rattled, and the future version of me began to scream. I staggered forward, away from it, tears burning my eyes. The endless mirrors shimmered, alive, filled with faces all turning toward me. And then, in unison, they spoke. Stay. The sound cracked the air like thunder, reverberating through my skull until blood trickled from my nose. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head, begging them to stop. But above the roar of voices, I heard his whisper. Quiet. Gentle. Certain. You were mine the moment you looked. The mirror world pulsed like it was breathing. Every reflective surface around me rippled with faint waves, alive and restless. Faces pressed against the glass from the inside, some screaming, some smiling, some banging their fists bloody in desperation. And every single one of them turned toward me. I staggered forward, my legs shaking, the sound of my heartbeat deafening in my ears. Somewhere in the distance, I heard laughter. His laughter. I ran. The field of mirrors stretched on forever, but no matter where I turned, it was there, the same towering pane of glass waiting ahead, shimmering faintly. When I reached it, I froze. On the other side was home. My bedroom. The warm glow of my lamp. The faint hum of the fan. And him. My reflection. He sat casually on the edge of my bed, scrolling through my phone. He looked comfortable. Natural. Like he'd been living my life all along. When his eyes finally met mine, his smile was small, almost sympathetic. You look tired. I slammed my fists against the glass, tears stinging my eyes. Give it back. That's mine. He shook his head slowly. No, it was never yours. You borrowed it. All of you do. Faces. Lives. Choices. Borrowed. We are the true originals. You're just echoes. The words cut into me like knives. You're lying. But the mirrors around me began to shimmer. And in them, I saw myself. Over and over. Living my life. But each one was slightly different. In one reflection, I saw myself older, broken, sitting alone in an empty room. In another, I saw myself hanging from the ceiling, rope digging into my throat. In yet another, I saw myself smiling with blood on my hands. 100 versions of me. 1,000. Each locked in glass. Each staring back like they'd been waiting. The truth hit me like ice. This wasn't just a world of reflections. It was a prison. Every choice, every path, every me that ever could exist, trapped here, screaming silently behind the glass. And the ones that escaped? They were the ones who had looked too long. Just like me. I fell to my knees, my chest heaving, nausea burning through me. No, I don't belong here. I'm real. I'm real. My reflection rose from the bed. Walked closer. Pressed his palm against the glass. The same spot where mine rested. His voice was soft. Almost kind. You were real. Until you gave me your place. The mirror rippled violently, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. And then it shattered. The world tore open. Shards of glass rained around me, each one catching fragments of reality. My house, my street, the people I knew, all breaking apart into glittering pieces. And through the collapse, I saw them. The others. The failed copies. They dragged themselves out of the falling mirrors, their broken bodies twitching, their mouths stretched into soundless screams. They crawled toward me on all fours, their faces peeling, their limbs bending wrong, desperate to cling to me. Because I wasn't just one of them. I was the last piece. The missing shard. And they wanted me to stay. Forever. The black void swallowed the mirrors, the faces, the horrors, until only two of us remained. Me. And him. My reflection. He stepped through the last shard of glass like it was water, leaving me behind. I lunged forward, grabbing his arm. And for a moment, we struggled on the threshold, me pulling, him pushing. Both of us desperate to claim the world that only one could keep. His face twisted into something monstrous. No longer human. No longer mine. And he whispered, "You'll never leave." The hands grabbed me again. Dozens. Hundreds. They dragged me back, clawing my skin, tearing at my clothes, pulling me into the collapsing void. I screamed until my throat ripped raw. But he just smiled. And stepped into my world. The darkness sealed shut. And I was gone. The void swallowed me whole. At first there was nothing, no sound, no sight, no feeling. Just endless dark pressing against my skin like a second body. My chest tightened, my lungs screamed for air, and I thought maybe this was it. Maybe I'd suffocate in silence, forgotten. But then, light. A faint glow shimmered around me. Mirrors. Endless mirrors, stretching farther than I could see. Each one with something moving inside. And when I looked closer, I realized they weren't strangers. They were me. Every mirror held a version of me. Some crying. Some bleeding. Some clawing desperately at the glass. Some standing perfectly still, eyes hollow, as if their souls had been emptied long ago. I pressed my hand against one of the mirrors, my breath shaking. The version of me on the other side did the same, but its hand didn't line up. Its fingers twitched, bent, broken. And its eyes were full of hate. Why? I whispered, my voice breaking. Why me? The reflections answered. Not with words. With laughter. Hundreds of my faces, all laughing at once. The sound thundered across the void, shaking the mirrors until cracks spread like spiderwebs. Shards rained down, cutting into my skin, slicing me open until blood slicked my hands. And in every drop that fell, another face appeared. Another me. All screaming. I ran. Through the labyrinth of glass, through the storm of shards. My feet cut open, my chest heaving, my voice raw. But no matter where I ran, he was there. My reflection. Always ahead. Always watching. Until finally, I collapsed. Knees in blood. Palms pressed to shattered glass. Tears stinging my face. And he appeared before me. Calm. Perfect. Whole. He crouched, his smile soft. You don't understand yet, do you? He whispered. I shook my head violently. You stole my life. You took it from me. He leaned closer, his voice low, almost gentle. No. You gave it to me. All it took was one word. The memory slammed into me like a blade. Hello? That first night in the bathroom mirror. My own voice. My invitation. I had opened the door. I screamed, slamming my fists against the glass beneath me until my skin tore. Then take it back. Take me instead. He tilted his head. His eyes glinted. And then, he laughed. Why would I settle for one, when I can have them all? The mirrors around us exploded. A tidal wave of faces poured out, every version of me, broken and hollow, crawling across the floor. Their mouths opened in unison, 1,000 voices whispering the same word. Stay. They swarmed me, hands cold, nails digging into my flesh. I fought, screamed, kicked, but there were too many. They dragged me down, pulling me into the cracked glass, shoving me into a frame that closed around me like a coffin. I slammed my fists against the barrier, but it was solid. Cold. On the other side, I saw him. My reflection. No. Not mine anymore. He stood in my room. Breathing. Alive. He ran his hands across the walls like he was tasting the air, savoring it. He sat on my bed. He picked up my phone. He smiled at the camera, my smile, my face, before snapping a picture. And then, he turned. Looking straight into the mirror. Straight at me. His grin widened. And he whispered. They'll never know the difference. The glass sealed shut. My screams echoed back at me, bouncing off 1,000 other faces, all trapped. All lost. All waiting. And then I realized the truth. There was no escape. Because the real world wasn't mine anymore. It never had been. I hope you liked the video. If you like it, subscribe us for more.